Welcome to the Lights, Camera, Rant Podcast. Your source for the latest on movies, TV shows, and video games. Get ready for ranting, raving, and reviewing. Here is your host, Lee.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Lights, Camera, Rant. And we need to talk about Andor Season 2 because it is the single darkest day in Star Wars history, and basically it should be shown on like I don't know, the Discovery Channel of like wartime films that need to be studied on just how effing brutal this was. And because we're going to something so close to Star Wars Rebels, I have to get the man who's going to absolutely blast me about it because I haven't watched it. I've got Andy from the Galactic Core podcast. How you going, man?
How's it going, buddy? Thank you, as always, for coming me on. Go-to man when you need to know stuff that you don't. So it's absolutely a pleasure to be able to hear him fill in the gaps.
Oh, I'm glad you can, and I know you get a kick out of it every single time. And as we're talking about Andor, compared to when we were talking about Andor 2 weeks ago, which was just the start, Andor's kind of kicked it up for you now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks, so like episodes 1 to 6, maybe even 1 to 5. I thought 6 wasn't too bad actually. Start kicking off. I haven't not really been enjoying Andor that much. I thought it was very slow. It was very disjointed. It like the year gap was like just throwing it apart. The 3 episodes focusing on only like a couple of days. It didn't tell much of a story, and then you're expected to just jump a year and deal with it. So yeah, I've not really enjoyed it up to this week, and then this week has kicked it right back up there.
Yeah. Well, definitely with these 3 episodes, and now that we're in the 3rd week, how are you finding the 3 episode dump for the past 3 weeks? Because as we're recording this, we've only got one more dump of 3 episodes, and then that's it.
Yeah, it kind of feels. It's nice to have a lot of episodes each week to watch. That is really enjoyable. But at the same time, the fact that it's all going to end next week is kind of sad. Because as soon as next week's episodes are over, you're going to go and watch Rogue One to then like cap it all off. But yeah, just the fact that loving the fact that 3 episodes a week, there's a lot of content to watch. It's great, but at the same point, being over in 4 weeks, it's too much. Like, we complained that 12 weeks of Andor meant we're covering a lot. They cut it down and went, here's 4 weeks for you, so lots to cover each week. We're like, yep, yeah. Brilliant. But then I'm like, okay, maybe this should have been like 6 to 8 weeks of coverage rather. 2 episodes a week maybe instead of 3.
Yeah, maybe 2 episodes. Because the thing is, like, which we've spoken about before, technically, even though Andor Season 1 came out every single week, it was basically cut the same way. 2 build up, 3. Third episode was a massive episode. 2 episodes of build up. 3rd episode was like a big episode, and that kept carrying on.
I mean, imagine if this week it had stopped after episode 8, so after the massacre, and we'd had to wait another week to see what happened with Mon Mothma. The build up to next week would have been immense.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that would have been.
So it would have been. I think 2 episodes a week would have been better than 3. I don't know why they decided to cut it down because it's not like Disney Plus have anything coming out over like May until the end of June. So
no, because as we're recording this, it is exactly 45 days until Ironheart, and we don't have a single promotional material of it or any trailer. And I think before Ironheart, I think the only show that had that record was Daredevil Born Again.
So either Disney not giving a shit about Ironheart or having no faith in something they filmed like 3 years ago.
Let me think. Both.
Yeah, probably. It's a shame because obviously we started to see a couple of interviews from the lead actress whose name I can't remember, but obviously the lady playing Riri Williams. So yeah, so I don't know why they decided to just cut Andor so short when they've got nothing else going on. They could have stretched this out a little bit longer, even for like I said, another couple of weeks. They did 6 weeks of 2 episodes rather than 4 weeks of 3.
They could have, especially like as we mentioned on your show last week, there's no more Star Wars content. Like there's not. Because I think last year we got Mandalorian season 3, and we had Ahsoka. No, sorry, we had Acolyte and Ahsoka back to back basically. But then Andor's over, and it's like, oh,
And the only Star Wars thing we get for the rest of the year isn't even like a canon thing. It's Visions Volume 3. So no more canon stuff really until probably Ahsoka early next year.
oh, I think you're pushing it with the early part.
Well, either that, or we've got to wait till this time next year when we get Mandalorian and Grogu film. So
that's it. Which I can't wait for that. That's going to be massive, and I'm going to absolutely spam Disney to get the premiere tickets to go to that. And I will dress up like Grogu, and Maddie can dress up as the Mandalorian.
from what I've seen, you're about the right height, so it should all be good.
I'll take that.
But it's alright. You can put your pooch. You can give him the little Yoda ears and put him in a bag and take him with you.
That's true, actually. Yeah, and just be like, he's my apprentice.
Because that would kill on the red carpet if all the photographers see you.
Yeah, they'll love it. They'll absolutely love it. But you're right now. There's nothing. There's Visions, and that's it. That's
as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, that's it for this year. So
because next year there is not a second TV show. At this moment, there's no second TV show. We've just got Ahsoka season 2 and Mandalorian Grogu.
Yeah, as far as I remember, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, at the moment, which I think everyone can agree that with Star Wars, it's like announcement, and only 2 of those are actually sticking, and then announcement, and only 3 of those are sticking.
I mean, it's been like that for since Rise of Skywalker, isn't it? So let's announce a bunch of stuff, and then you might get it, you might not, it might get cancelled if we remember to still do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We had a Rogue Squadron movie. Oh, that's right. We had that. Oh, that's right. We were doing a prequel to the Old Republic. Oh, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did say that Taika Waititi could do a film, but like we put that off for a while, and we kind of still want him to do it, but none of the public want him to do it since he fucked up Thor. So. Yes.
Oh, and we had one for Kevin Feige too. We wanted Kevin. Feige.
That's gone. Yeah, that's gone. Who knows with Star Wars? I mean, I know like Marvel are trying to strip it back to do quality over quantity, as they said, going back to their like 2 or 3 films a year and 1 or 2 series rather than like 7 things a year. But just can Star Wars up it a little bit? Like maybe a TV show and a film a year if we're lucky. Like we're getting obviously animated stuff. Like we're likely to get another Tales of the whatever next year. That seems to be a yearly thing now.
The Tales of whatever.
Well, just change it every year, isn't it? So one day we might get Tales of the Sith, which is all I'm really hoping for. Tales of the Underworld wasn't too bad. I haven't reviewed it like completely on my show. I just did give it a vague rating on my Instagram story because I wasn't like over the hill with it. So I find it a bit boring. But so animated shows like they just drop those every now and again. That's the only consistent thing we're really getting from them at the moment. So
unfortunately, I haven't gone. Was Visions? Yeah, still Visions. Yeah, I haven't watched Visions season 2.
Oh really? I mean, it's fun. It's interesting to tell different random stories in these like anime manga styles. Like because anime manga isn't massively my thing, but it's still interesting to watch it and see the different styles and see the different stories they throw in there.
It is. I still love. I think it's the first episode of Visions when it's that black and white one.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's still my favorite.
Yeah, that's still one of my favourites. And that character as well is the one that they seem to have done the most with in terms of they made a comic book about what he did after that. They've released Pop Funko figures and statues of him. And they haven't really done that for almost anything else in Visions. So
No, but they've done all that. And that was, I remember that first episode watching that going, cool, I can't wait for the rest. Oh, righty. Each to their own. Go back to Andor. So, episode 8, The Messenger. Welcome back to Yavin IV.
Indeed, we obviously a year on from where we saw the pointless bit of Andor being held captive at the start of it. What was it? That was the start of the season, wasn't it? 2 weeks ago.
that was the start where he's in the.
So technically we're 2 years on from that now, and obviously they built up a bit of a rebellion going on there. Andor's out there with Bix, sleeping out in the jungle somewhere. But good to see them all up and running and getting things going, and obviously seeing how it should be. Because I was wondering when that was going to happen with Yavin IV. How early did they have it up and running before that we see them in the original trilogy?
Yeah. And that's the thing is that going back to Yavin IV, seeing all this, like, all the aesthetics are fantastic. Nothing seems out of place. It still looks that type, old technology with all of it, so it still looks fantastic. And yeah, this is where all the shit goes down in another movie, and then that's when shit all goes.
Yeah, fair.
Goes down. But we see the fact that Andor's been in a recent fight. It looks like he's got a blaster on his
Scar
back.
on the shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems that Force users are still, actually, they always have been at this point, hit of a miss. People do trust him or don't trust him. We feel very much like Han Solo. It's a myth. The Force isn't real.
I mean, it was interesting because Force healers have been a thing throughout Star Wars, like Legends and technically canon, because you do have people of varying Force abilities throughout the universe. It's just obviously the strong ones become Jedi or Sith or whatever, and so there are still going to be people with varying Force abilities. And as they've tried to change the narrative recently on the fact that you can train yourself to use the Force, you don't have to be a naturally gifted high midichlorian person to use that. We're not going to talk about Sabine in Ahsoka to cover that one, but obviously that's the narrative they've written recently. So Force Healers is something they brought through from Legends as well. That was a big thing over there. So it's no surprise to finally see it. I think it's quite cool though, to be honest, and the fact that she as well was a bit like, I've kind of lost the faith in it a bit recently, and I've kind of just been pretending. Because a lot of people are going to turn around and go, oh, well, we didn't see this until the last 5 or 6 years, because we saw Grogu in The Mandalorian. Grogu used it, and then literally the week after, Rey in The Rise of Skywalker used it, and obviously Ben Solo as well. And then obviously now they're they're low Force users who are Force healers being able to do it. And she was it was quite cool though, where she was just like, I kind of lost interest in doing it, or lost my faith in being a Force healer until she felt Andor's presence, Cassian's presence. And what was even, when they're tying everything together now as well, so you get the whole hint of I get the sense, or I get the vision that he's a messenger. He's got somewhere important to be, and he's a messenger. And you're like, okay, Scarif Beach sending the Death Star plans through to the rebellion. So that's, it's cool that...
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I like about that, because some people might go, it's cheesy, it's a bit, you don't really need it to include it, but I think one of the biggest themes of Rogue One itself, the film, was that no matter where everyone was or what sort of state they were in, peace of mind, whatever, is that the Force basically brought them all together to be where they needed to be and do what they needed to do to help the rebellion further their cause to defeat the Empire. And so the fact that a Force healer is there, I get the sense that he has a place to be and he has a message to send. Again, it's just linking into that whole, the Force is manipulating everything now, getting the ball rolling, getting everyone where they need to be, and culminating in the rebellion taking shape.
On the chessboard. Yeah, it still amazes me that Rogue One is one of the single best Star Wars films, period. And it's all based of probably not even 2 lines, literally 1 line of text. That's all it's based off. And it's one of the best Star Wars films.
I mean, the fact that people even still debate that. I mean, there was a thread I saw on TikTok recently with give me your hot Star Wars takes, not just things like I don't enjoy the Rise of Skywalker or anything like that. Just give me your out there Star Wars takes. I had my own that I contributed.
Oh, what was yours? Oh, how cool is side note, how cool is that thing I sent you yesterday?
Yes, yeah, the Mace Windu thing. Yeah, that was cool
I
to be
was
fair.
I was like, oh,
Did have a look at that, and I was just like,
yeah,
"Oh, is this?" Because he talked about the end about the Fury and having the icon. I'm like, "Is he talking
yeah,
about Nick Fury? Is he talking about
yeah.
Mace Windu?" That was
I
quite cool.
know. I was like, oh, I could watch a whole episode of Visions on that.
Yeah, that was cool. So my Star Wars hot take.
Yeah. Here we go. Here, listen in.
Dave Filoni is not the savior of Star Wars. He is a man who is obsessed with his own characters, so much so that he can't move on past them, and he will run them into the ground before he gives up using them.
Damn. I thought he was meant to be the apprentice.
I mean, everyone talks about him as like, you know, the rightful successor to George Lucas in a way, because, you know, he obviously, we know what his history with Star Wars is, you know, working through Clone Wars, Rebels, and everything since then. But this is a man obsessed with one particular era of Star Wars and the characters in it, and cannot move past that to do new content. He didn't come up with Mandalorian and Grogu. That was Jon Favreau. That was on Jon Favreau's show. He wrote that.
Yeah.
So Dave Filoni is obsessed with Ahsoka and Rebels and all the characters around the Clone Wars. He cannot move past those characters in that era and has to bring them out of that era to continue doing what he does. And he is potentially endangering the legacy of these characters by taking them too far and running them into the ground because he can't let them go.
So, what you think that from us seeing Ahsoka and these Rebels characters, for example, in Book of Boba Fett, and in Mandalorian and Ahsoka, has been too much?
I'm not necessarily saying right now, but I'm saying there's a danger of him doing that because he can't come up with new characters to come up into a new era of Star Wars. He can't come out of the Skywalker saga. He's obsessed with staying in it. Everything has come from his work on Clone Wars, you know, and even the fact we're getting a new Maul series, he can't let the character go that he brought back. He has to continue him on. Ahsoka season 2, bringing back the Rebels crew after that show was rounded off really nicely. Yep, we did need a bit of a follow up to see what happened with Ezra and stuff like that. Yep, that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem finishing off that story. But there is also a danger with the rumored fact that Anakin Skywalker has a much bigger role in Ahsoka season 2. You're endangering the legacy of Anakin Skywalker by pushing it too much to have him doing a lot of stuff beyond the original trilogy timeline, where he obviously passes away as Vader after redeeming himself and becomes a Force ghost and seeing his family happy at that time. There's a danger that he's going to push this too far because he will not let the characters go. That was essentially what my hot take was, that he's not the big savior that everyone thinks he is because he cannot move past this and is obsessed with his own creations and will only work on those characters.
Well, I don't want to see more Anakin. I feel like Anakin, what he did in Ahsoka, just that episode alone was just that was Chef's kiss in that entire scene, and that was a great way to weave Clone Wars, weave the prequel films, and kind of lead onto the original trilogy very nicely, and Revenge of the Sith. Well, do you think? Here you go. Do you think that everything that we're getting right now with Star Wars, with the Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka? I know a lot of people don't like the Book of Boba Fett, but I'm gonna still mention it anyway. Ahsoka, the Mandalorian Grogu movie, and apparently there's meant to be another movie after that, meant to be with, or is that meant to be the movie with Thrawn?
Yeah, that's the one that's going to wrap it all those timelines up together and culminating in this big Thrawn film. Everyone's dubbed it Heir to the Empire, the film. But yeah, all roads lead to this final film where Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, even Skeleton Crew, supposedly, is all going to come to a culmination in that series, with that film.
Yeah. Do you think we should have got all this before we even got this sequel trilogy? Do you think it would have been just as popular, or do you think it's more popular because the sequel trilogy had its kind of...
No, I mean, there's a lot of problems with the sequels. There are good points about it. It's that everyone's going to debate, but I think it was it was only logical they kind of did do the sequels first, because after Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, a couple of years later they released Rebels. That was the first sort of major thing they did, and then they went, yeah, we're doing sequels. And that was kind of the big thing that everyone was going to call for. You can't buy Star Wars and the first thing you do is release a bunch of random TV series to show things that happened. Because really, Clone Wars ended early because Disney bought Lucasfilm. So we didn't get season 7 or even the proper season 6 because it was ended, and Ahsoka was still viewed not great back then. She was still kind of like this annoying teenager. She wasn't as beloved as she's become over the next 10 years. So if you'd have gone straight from Disney buying Lucasfilm to then doing Rebels and then say doing Ahsoka season 1 and 2, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, I don't think it would have landed as well. Maybe Mandalorian still would have, because cool character, Grogu's cool. But I think we needed the sequels first, because if you're going to buy Lucasfilm, the first thing that you're going to hit you up with is do the fucking sequels to the Skywalker saga. So it made sense they were always going to do that first. I don't see any timeline where they wouldn't have done that first. And I think they needed, characters like Ahsoka needed time for her to become a beloved character, to get to the point where everyone wants the Ahsoka series, yeah, and they want that legacy and stuff. So, yeah, I think they've done it in the right order, because you don't have to have a linear timeline. It's not like Marvel where they're sort of doing it in a timeline order, so to speak. You can jump around with Star Wars; it's absolutely fine. So yeah, I think it's fine them doing it in this order. I think it's probably been better for them that way, despite the backlash they've had from things, like some of the sequel films and stuff like that. I think it's still been done in the right order. They just needed to do the sequels better.
Yep. Doesn't matter. But what was, sorry to go on that type of tangent, but what was the hot take?
You know what? I've forgotten what we were talking about now. We got so done.
I know. That's what I mean. Like, wow, we really went off. Because you said about your hot take, and it was the hot take. Oh, about the line about Rogue One, and Bothan's brought us this message or something.
Oh no! I mean, no. Yeah, I think it's just about the fact that
did mean Andor.
Yeah, people saying hot takes in terms of Rogue One is in their bottom 3 Star Wars films. They just don't enjoy it anywhere near as much as everyone else seems to. So it's crazy to me that such a good film, especially in the Disney era of Lucasfilm, people saying it's a really bad film and they didn't enjoy it and that it was plain and boring. And I'm like, how was that film plain and boring?
I'm back.
Did you hear anything I said?
Sorry about that. No, I didn't. Sorry about that.
It's all right. I was just saying that people saying their hot take was the fact that they thought Rogue One was a bad film, and it's in their bottom 3 of Star Wars films. They thought it was plain, bland, boring, didn't further the story, boring characters, and they just didn't enjoy it. Everyone don't know why it's so highly rated.
What the fuck?
These are also people that say that Revenge of the Sith is one of the worst Star Wars films as well, so you can't really trust them.
That's true. They're probably like, Attack of the Clones was just fantastic. The CGI was amazing. You never understand its pure awesomeness of Attack of the Clones.
Well, be careful, because my wife rates Attack of the Clones quite highly. I don't know why I married these people.
I must admit, I would say probably, if you take away the sequel trilogy, Attack of the Clones is probably the least one I've gone back to watch.
I think for me it's probably episode 1, Phantom Menace, because if you take out the Maul stuff, I've always had Kid Anakin as one of my worst characters ever.
What do you mean? This is pod racing, man.
No, it's literally nothing against Jake Lloyd or anything like that, but it's just Kid Anakin is annoying to me. It's like people talk about the legendary Skywalker wine, how Anakin had it as a teenager, how Luke obviously has it in the original trilogy, and then it's just but Kid Anakin is the ultimate Skywalker wine.
Oh, I don't want to go do that. I don't want to do this. God damn it! I don't. Yeah, it's true. But I know, I guess Attack of the Clones, doesn't really, I don't know, to me, I feel like the CGI out of all of them, besides, take it as you will, that's the one that hasn't aged fine like wine.
I mean, it's it was groundbreaking for the time. They had to literally invent things to be able to produce the things they wanted to on screen, and there are still things in it now that are groundbreaking and record breaking, and that haven't been able to be reproduced since. So people can say what they want about it for a product of its time of 2002, 2001. It's fucking phenomenal. So I don't care what people say about the CGI, because I'm like, it was good for its time. I mean, you look at what they were dealing with when they did the original trilogy, and the advances then made to get the prequels looking as they were.
Yeah, well, yeah, the original trilogy is fantastic, and Revenge of the Sith really.
I mean, people want to talk about
perfect.
Holding up CGI and stuff like that. The fact that they had to give Luke Skywalker a green lightsaber in Episode 6, because when he held it up against the sky, you couldn't see the fucking original blue one. So that's how far it came in 25 years, because they couldn't even see a blue lightsaber up against the sky when they tried to edit it, so they had to change it to green to make it visual. And then you look at what's produced in the prequels, and I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Oh, yeah, it's true. And we got the yellow lightsaber. I'm like, cool. In the wrong person's hands. Anyway.
Are you talking about Sar Ventress?
No. I think everyone knows who I'm talking about. Sorry. Yeah, I'm pulling right back to Andor.
Okay.
Force
healers are all good.
Yeah, Force healers, yeah. The tangent, sorry, that tangent was completely on me, is that how we get Cassian on to Gorman is the fact that he's going to try and assassinate Dedra going into this, and that after his heals, and we can also tell the fact that Sirill also is growing a bit skeptical about everything that's happening with Gorman. I think it was a good episode just to try and kick this off, going into what's going to be taking place onto like the darkest.
Yeah, I mean,
if
you take that episode on its own, and it was a shorter episode, it didn't seem like a lot really happened, but it's building everything up. So when you take 7 and 8 together, it's built, and maybe even 6 I would include in that. I would have said 6, 7 and 8 is more of a trilogy of episodes than episode 9 was added onto that, because 6 kind of starts building up, even though it's a year before, because it's setting the scene for the massacre straight away. And then episode 7 is just getting everyone into place. It's building that tension, showing the tensions between the Gormans and the Empire, and then how the rebellion's fitting into that, and also showing that Cassian's sort of reaching a stage where he's wants to focus less on like the hit jobs with Luthen, and more on what the actual rebellion's doing. Even though it's effectively Luthen and Mon Mothma that set everything up from the start, and Luthen's like one of the behind the scenes, obviously biggest player out of all of this. But the fact that it's evolved beyond that now, because it's involving the whole point was they were on their own to start with, and Luthen's kind of still acting like that. He's kind of like, I need to do individual things and do this. And then he even said in last week's episode, I've got my finger in so many different things now, I can't keep track, because it's grown beyond that. And Cassian had realised that. He's like, this started off with just us, but we can't do it alone. We need all these people around us to do this. And so the fact that it was setting the scene for all that, and getting them forward, and getting them, and obviously, just Luthen, well, I'd say Luthen, but just basically getting to Andor and going, look, you need to fucking do this for us. We need you on this one still. You're still part of this. And he's like, yeah, I said to Luthen I'd always be there. And so he, like, almost begrudgingly, doesn't he, accepts that he's going to go and do this.
Yeah, that's right, because Luthen does say that. He's like, every time I've needed you, you've been there, and I need you here. And he's like,
yeah, I know, I said I would do, so... But yeah, just moving everyone into place, through episode 7 was quite effective. Like I said, not if you sort of watch it independently as an episode, or rate it as an independent episode on its own, but you put it together with episode 8, and just building everything up towards it. It was a good episode in terms of getting that together, and like you said, we see Yavin IV and putting everything together there, and just seeing a little bit more. And just seeing, putting all the chess pieces into place, essentially, ready for this crisis.
Pretty much. And, this is why I've got you here. So, the Gorman Massacre, which we see in episode 9, and before we get into it, this was mentioned in an episode of Rebels.
So effectively, episode 9, well, episode 8 is the massacre. Episode 9 is obviously when they're getting Mon Mothma out of the Senate. So episode 9, there is technically a sequel to that episode, and it's an episode of Rebels. So there's an episode of Rebels where, because we see at the end of episode 9 that they mentioned that the Gold Squadron is going to escort Mon Mothma off Coruscant to Yavin IV. And then the Ghost Crew are called in because the Gold Squadron effectively need help. So they go help them defeat some ships that are some Empire ships that are in pursuit of Gold Squadron, and then they bring the cargo, because they don't know what the cargo is at that point, aboard, and we see Mon Mothma's aide from this week's episodes as well, the Erskine Samaj, who turned out obviously to be working for Luthen, and she kind of dismissed him, but he still helps out anyway because he cares. He's in this episode as well. We see him actually in the poster you put up there, just behind Ezra. And he's like, it's none of your business what's going on. We just need this person transported. And obviously they find out it's Mon Mothma. They're the ones that get her to the meeting place, where basically she puts out a galaxy-wide transmission calling all the different rebel cells to come together. So even though the rebellion's sort of already been formed and it started and the base of it is on Yavin, there's obviously rebel cells and independent groups spread out across the galaxy fighting the Empire, and this is where she basically calls them all to come together. And she talks about the fact that she's resigned from the Senate, or she even announces it in this bit, I think, where she actually announces her resignation from the Senate, and she obviously mentions the Gorman Massacre in this speech as the reason for that. And then obviously we see all these different ships and cells come together, and that's where the true rebellion then kicks off as being the big rebellion that we know.
Well, that makes sense. So yeah, Gorman was really just only just mentioned. Really.
Mentioned, yeah. In terms of canon material, there's nothing mentioned of it before. This was the only mention that we had of it before. In Legends, there is a Gor Massacre as well, which they kind of rewrote to fit the one they talked about earlier in the timeline. With the Tarkin 500 people, and that's why there's a monument in the middle of the plaza. That seems to have been adapted from the Legends Gorman Massacre. But in terms of canon, that episode of Rebels was the only mention of it before, and obviously they've almost worked a whole show around the fact that they mentioned it, and they kind of needed to show it now. So
which this is again just a piece of line dialogue essentially, and then boom, we get an episode which, as I mentioned to you before we started talking this entire episode, I feel like you just take it out and elements of it just doesn't feel like Star Wars. This feels like a period piece, or it technically is a period piece, but it's just dark. There's nothing happy about this episode. It is all pending doom for this entire thing of what's about to go down, because it's going to go down. It is doom and gloom everywhere. All again, pieces all start lining up. The Empire's getting ready, barricading the inn. They're getting everyone to come into the city center, and you can tell it's shit.
Yeah, really well done in the fact that they've manipulated everything. And obviously some people are realizing early on. So the dude that was head of the Gorman Front, the old dude with the grey hair, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he obviously realizes early on what's happening, and is trying to obviously stop it, but no one's listening to him.
Caro.
And obviously he has his little confrontation with Sirill earlier on the way to the plaza. And then obviously Andor realizes it early on, because he's in the morning when they're moving all the barricades, and they think the public think they're opening up the square to them so they can protest again, and they're like, nope, they're just reinforcing the HQ and making it a barricaded in. So it's going to be something. So Andor obviously is training. He realizes early on what's happening, and some shit's going to go down. But just building up, like I said, the tension, they built everything up towards it, and manipulating everything to get to one place where they needed it to be. And this is obviously a goal for the Empire. That's oh, mark my words, nice.
Yeah. Also drinking some Kraken.
Lovely. A bit early for me to be drinking, to be fair. So, but yeah, obviously they're just manipulating and moving it all into place. And this is a plan that they've had for the last 3 years, since they had that first meeting with Krennic, and the fact that they were like, "Yep, we're going to eventually get to that stage."
Calcite that. We need more calcite for something that, I don't think it could just be me. I've never heard an element in Star Wars called calcite.
I think it's interesting though is when Deirdre has that meeting with her boss and they're like, I've just heard from the Emperor himself that that they've done their research, or they complete their research now, and there's just nothing that matches up to calcite, and we need that. So eventually, we're going to put this plan into place where we're just going to take over Gorman and take that resource. So it is interesting that because I don't think obviously they ever really planned to find anything better than calcite, and so it was just always the long-term plan was to go and fuck up Gorman and take over their resources, and they just pretended like they were trying to find other things first.
Oh, 100%. Like as soon as she said that, as soon as he said that, I'm like, that's a bunch of horseshit. That's. Oh, we've exhausted all of our resources trying to find out another planet. We can't find it. Let's just keep going with Gorman because we're 3 years deep into Gorman. Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Giggity.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I always say that. But you're right, and it's been a 3-year mission, and we get to see the fact that we have a brand new person who's in charge, who's going to be coordinating the entire thing from top to bottom, which he does a fantastic job as fucked up as it was.
I mean, just the planning behind it. So obviously barricading the HQ to start with, the fact that he asked for a bunch of essentially green soldiers because he knew he was going to sacrifice them to start everything off. So sending them out into the crowd, the tension's growing. Maybe their inexperienced sergeant or whatever it was that then told them. Obviously, they've got the sniper that fires on one of them, kills one of his own to start this off, and then the sergeant, inexperienced as he may have been, was just like open fire on the crowd, which gives everyone else an excuse. Obviously, all the rest of the Empire an excuse to start firing on them, and they're firing back, and that just was what kicks off this fucking massacre. And it's brutal just watching it go down, and we're just watching like the Gorman front one by one just dropping as they're all killed off,
one by one by one. But before it all starts going into that, we finally see the realization with Sirill.
Yeah, this was well done.
Yeah, he realizes what's going on, and what I really liked is that when he goes to confront Dedra, like for the entire time that we've seen her, except for probably about 10%, she's basically been cold, calculated with everything. But these last 2 episodes, and when Sirill meets her, like confronts her, she's realizing the fact that no, this isn't. Shit.
Yeah, she's shook. Because she realizes what's about to happen, what's going on. The fact that she's had a hand in this, sort of even unwillingly, and been maybe manipulated herself, even though she knew that was kind of the end game of what was likely to happen. And the fact that we've always seen her strong, steadfast, as you said, cold, calculating throughout the season 1 and 2 of Andor, until it gets to the big moments. We saw at the end of season 1 with the uprising, that she shit herself and Sirill had to save her essentially, and obviously, so in the moments of deep actual crisis of being in the middle of the action, she crumbles. But the fact that Sirill realised everything, confronts her, chokes her out as well, which I didn't expect.
Oh, I know.
I was like,
damn, I'm guessing that's what happened when she told her to take the lights out.
I mean, completely changes the dynamic of what we think happens in the bedroom with him now. It's like Dedra being cold, wanting to peg him, very much in charge. And now it's like, okay, was Dedra the one that was tied up and choked out? And he's now doing that out of anger. So I mean...
reverse card.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, Sirill's realisation, and that he obviously then leaves, and he just stands in the crowd and has this moment where he's just taking it all in and contemplating what his next move is.
And I really like that when they're going around him with the camera, like you feel like if you felt that, you're like, he's literally looking and going, I helped everyone who's dying right now. I helped with this is on me, and there's nothing he can do. He realizes the woman he loves is a cold and calculated murderer, which a part of me is like, you would have known that.
I mean, obviously, she was told she's got to keep the real reason of what they're doing away from Sirill, and he can't know, and that's fine because she's obviously manipulated the situation into him just thinking that he was, as he says, he thought he was setting everything up so that they could find the outside agitators that were helping the Gorman front in terms of the rebellion, because he still thinks this is all linked to Cassian and Andor and what happened on Ferrix fucking 3 years ago. And his own personal downfall from being a deadbeat sort of like second in command cop. And we see that because in the middle of the Gor Massacre, he sees Cassian and he drops everything that he was about to do in terms of turning on the Empire. Because I think he was about to turn and start shooting at the Empire troops and stuff like that, or start helping the Gormans try and escape or whatever. And he sees Cassian and goes fucking nuts. And who knew that Sirill could actually hold his ground that way as well in a fight?
He was really laying into Andor, and Andor was just taken off by surprise. He was off his feet and just getting his ass handled to him by a pencil pusher.
It was just unreal to see that action. I mean, initially as well, as you think that when that grenade goes off behind him on the window, that's Sirill done, because
he's dead.
Fucking, it's because like those grenades going off in Star Wars that close to you, you'd think he's definitely gone, but not a scratch apparently, not even a bit of concussion or anything from the Force, and just gets up, gives Andor another kicking, and then obviously sits standing above him with his gun, about to fire on him. Just a classic line of just like, "Who are you?" Like your entire life for 4 years has revolved around something I did to you, and I have no idea who you are.
I know, and that's what I said to you before we started recording, was the fact that that made me think of just Wanda and Thanos. And you took everything from me. I don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah, it was just one of those funny moments where you're like, fair. Like, why would Cassian remember you or know who you are when he barely had any contact with you, really? And you've made your entire personality for 4 years about getting revenge on him. So, and then obviously, the head of the Gorman front shoots him in the head, and that's it for Sirill.
Straight on the side of the cranium on that. Mr. Mark my words. Me only seeing like 4 episodes of Andor season 1. Yes.
Shocking. Someone's not allowed to go to another Marvel premiere until they've watched some Star Wars.
Oh, it's a lot of episodes in deep, Andor. Don't worry, Mr. Mike Words. Pretty sure you can go on YouTube and watch a recap.
No recaps. Watch the episodes.
No.
Come on, Lee. No one wants to watch a Clone Wars recap. Watch the damn episodes. It's only 7 seasons of like 24 episodes a season. You're fine.
It's a lot of episodes, man.
It is. It's worth it, though.
I know. Well, yeah, but
don't claim you don't have time.
That's why I've got you.
I'm just not going to tell you anything anymore. I'm just going to rib you for it.
No, I don't think that's. I think he's going to do that by choice. I don't think that's anything different.
Yeah, that's true. I just won't disclose any Rebels or Clone Wars information when you ask me anymore.
No, he does that now, ladies and gentlemen. But Sirill gets credit. So with Sirill dead, how do you feel like Sirill in the massive universe that is Star Wars? I feel like he's like, yes, he didn't do a whole lot, but at the same time, again, gets touched on very much like what we saw in episode 8 of Star Wars, is that you can very well get in the core of the middle between the Empire and the Rebellion, and there isn't a good side.
Yeah, he's been, I want to say the word interesting, is he's been an interesting character because of the impact he's had, but at the same time, I felt like you could have eliminated him from season 1 and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. The real impact he made was saving Dedra at the uprising of Ferrix at the end of season 1. Apart from that, I don't really see the impact he had in season 1. Season 2, he's obviously been played, and I think season 2 is where he becomes a good case study for a character, because you can take someone who believes with their whole being that they're doing something right and that they're doing something for the right cause and for the right reasons, and still have been tricked into doing it through propaganda, through being lied to, and having that realization at the end. I don't much want to talk about politics, but I think a very good real life case study, this would be America right now. So just seeing a character that you can have that has gone through all that, who thinks he's doing the right thing, who's
Yeah.
doing things for the right cause, and realizing at the end how badly manipulated everyone has been by the the people in charge, and that's what I think is good about his character, is just seeing that case study of someone being manipulated so badly and thinks they're so right for almost the entire time until they actually start using their brain and going, this isn't right, something's not right here, instead of just taking it on face value, that when he's actually spent the time to dig into it, which has taken him 2.5 years, he's then gone, oh shit, this doesn't sit right, things don't make sense, everything's a setup. So good case study on that front for the character itself, but not a character I'm particularly going to miss, especially if we don't see his mum ever again.
I know.
How dare she shed tears in episode
I
9 of the Gorman Massacre on the news when you named a fucking toy spider after your son.
That was rough. When she's telling him that, I'm like, God damn, you're a fucking bitch.
So yes, I hope that is literally the last we see now of his mum.
Yeah.
No need to see her again.
No, I don't think so. It'll be very interesting to see in the very last 3 episodes whether or not we see Dedra. Is she still going to be playing a big factor, or we're just going to see
She's
her...
still got a role to play in the last episode, simply because there was a scene from the trailer where we see her in Luthen's shop pointing a gun at someone, looking very angry. So
right.
there is still more to come from Dedra,
Well,
and
yeah,
I guess the odds on money now is whether she's the one that kills off Luthen. Because I don't think Luthen's making it through this. I'm not even sure Dedra makes it through this. My money was on, I think I said to you last week, my money was also on Bix to be killed off before the end. But since she's done a runner now, that's maybe the last we see of her.
I know. I must admit, that was a little disappointing. I was like, why? Like, it was more disappointing to me because I know what happens next. Like, oh my god, you have to make the right choice for the rebellion. And then next day, what's the planet called? Blows up, rebels die on planet. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have left him. Also hugging another woman to the end. Ah, yeah, he did.
Well, I saw someone say yesterday that now we know the reason why that Andor didn't kiss Jin at the end of Rogue One, because he still sort of thought he was going to get Bix at the end of the day.
Yeah, what a giant explosion is heading to. Yeah, I'm going to get out of this pretty alright. Unscathed. Not at all. No, and you're right, I did see that as well. I was a bit like, it is, but I think he was just thinking about her. Not the fact he was going to still see her. God, no. But actually, I could be right. Like, the fact that maybe Dedra can't find Andor, but she finds Luthen and goes, well, and she thinks Andor was the one who killed Sirill. And she goes, well, if I can't find Andor, I'm killing the person who let the dog off the leash.
I'm not sure in the middle of that massacre you could ever account a death to anybody, in terms of like an individual like that saying, Andor was the one that killed. I mean, she might get a report from someone saying, I saw Cassian and Sirill fighting, and maybe that she could jump to that conclusion, which, is fair enough. But yeah, I think in the middle of a massacre like that, you can't really dictate to someone and go, oh, that one individual killed that one person, because who knows what the fuck has happened in that thing. I mean, the brutality of which the Empire went at it, and then we released the security droids into the crowd as well, just tossing people about like they were nothing. As we see, like, the daughter of the head of the Gorman front, gets picked up and tossed and dies. You see that other guy when they're breaking out from the crowd, who just gets thrown across the street into a wall. It's just like, God. Yeah. And that was obviously the one that becomes K2. So
I know, and I did very much feel like Sirill when he's staying in that room and the one robot's looking at him.
Just staring at him. Yeah, that was brilliant.
I'm like, I probably would feel the same. Like, you'd just be like,
he's like, there's 6 droids in that room, none of them looking at him, and then the one is just staring him down. It's just like, that's got to be K2.
You're gonna die. I don't. And it's still pretty much everyone that Gorman, all the rebellion, the Gorman rebellion all dies in that. It's a very devastating scene with it all, and you can even not so much, but Dedra, you can tell the fact that everyone's just like, holy shit,
Yeah, I mean, she's
what
obviously
has happened?
shaking at the end, like physically, and obviously looks like she's going to throw up. Which
Yeah,
fair if to see a witness that in person when that's not the kind of officer that you are in terms of you're not, you're not someone that goes out there and pulls the trigger on people. You plan the attack maybe, but you don't ever like one that pulls the trigger to stand there and physically watch it all go down.
no, no,
Obviously the
and
impact that that's had. And what was I think in the news report they said that like hundreds dead in the square, thousands more dead in the streets. So it's spread
yes,
out beyond the
yeah.
obviously the plaza.
Well, the droids kept going out. The droids were
Yeah.
still attacking everybody,
So
and you know, going back to slightly what Sirill says to Dedra, and the fact that you couldn't wait, that the mining facilities and the drills are already here. Like you couldn't wait till a little bit later to bring it all in after you massacred them. Like he realized like that moment that it was far beyond what was about to happen.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like I say, it's just him realizing, finally engaging his brain and realizing everything that was going on and piecing it all together. Like the propaganda from all the TV crews that were there, like for the day or two before, just telling everything and saying, "Oh, it's all about the local rumors going on about this." And he's like, "They're not rumors; it's fucking true. You've got
Yeah,
all this shit and been doing it already.
yeah.
You've erected an armory that's like towers way above the rest of the city." Which there was no need to make it that big either. That's just like imperial dick swinging. Going, we're just gonna put in plain sight a building that's 10 times bigger than anything you've got in the city centre.
Fucking coin that imperial dick swinging right there.
It's what it was.
That's how you get yeah. Same with the ships.
To make a building that big in the middle of, like up next to the plaza above the monument of which you've already massacred people like Tarkin did because they wouldn't let him land his ship, so he's like, let's just fucking kill a bunch of people anyway.
Yeah. Well, you're probably I'm probably going to be wrong, but like, what was worse, this or the siege of Mandalore?
Ooh, I mean the siege of Mandalore's. I mean, Mon Mothma uses the word when she talks to the Senate. Both are cases of genocide. Because here, this is like trying to wipe people out. Or obviously, they weren't trying to wipe out the entire planet, though. I think that's the difference. Is they weren't trying to wipe out the entire planet. It was just very carefully manipulated and knew that they were going to have to kill off people, kill a bunch of people to get the planet in line and where they want them to take over, and
Yeah.
then just use the resources. Whereas Mandalore was an extermination.
Mm.
They wanted to wipe out the people. They wanted to get rid of them. The same with the fact of what they did on Geonosis with the Geonosian bugs. They completely, again, if you watch Rebels, you'd know. But they completely wipe out, obviously, a species to hide what they were doing, and the fact that the Geonosians helped build the Death Star. So it's an exterminate. I think an extermination of a complete race is worse than maybe a manipulation to get control of a planet.
Well,
It's just the fact that we've seen this in more detail. Like, obviously, we saw the Night of a Thousand Tears. We saw a few clips of the bombing and that like sort of play on the Terminator scene when you see the security droids going through the water and stuff. But you don't see it on a scale like we see this. So this comes across more brutal because we physically see the massacre happen, as opposed to like 1,000 ships bombing the surface of Mandalore.
that's very true. Well, technically, this is a massacre because I'm pretty sure director Crank did say that once they finish all the mining, the planet's
Oh yeah,
that's
because
it.
they're just going to strip it right down, and so
Yeah,
yeah. But their ultimate goal wasn't necessarily to wipe out the Gorman people as a whole. It was just to push them to a point where they could do enough damage to then take control of the planet. And once they've
yeah.
done with the planet, whoever's left can do what they want to survive. Whereas the extermination of Mandalore was that, and it was extermination of the Mandalorian people because the Mandalorians opposed to uprising and aggressiveness, and so they wanted to have them wiped out. Whereas here was a bit like, we're going to fuck you up to the point where we can use you, and then if there's any of you left after that, do what you want.
See ya.
Yeah,
Yeah, which they do, and it shows you the brutality of the Empire. And I think I'm really glad they did bring this in, and it shows you just a full different side that for the people that aren't a Sith, aren't a Jedi, aren't a Mandalorian, the fact that these regular people, even in episodes far back with the farmers, like, there's nothing you could do. It's just an empowering force, and they can do whatever they want. There's no one that's going to come and help you.
Although, interestingly, it obviously does come from a place of the Sith. Because at the end of the day, Palpatine's in charge of the Empire. He designed it all. That was his long-term plan, was to have a totalitarian force in place to rule the galaxy. And so it comes from a place of, like, deceiving people of who Palpatine and Vader were. But at the end of the day, it's very much the work and manipulation of the Sith to get a government in place that rules like that, and then have people in charge below him that can also follow those rules and follow that way of being. So, as much as we say this is the Empire, it's still a Sith thing at the end of the day.
Also, I forgot to mention, for everyone who isn't watching this episode, as we are talking about the darkest day in Star Wars history, an absolute massacre all in turn. This gentleman right here is wearing an Empire hat.
What can I say? I support the regime. No.
I could clip that, and I could just put that on anything.
You could, to be fair, yeah. I love the Sith, so I mean, I thought it was appropriate. I could have worn the Rebellion hat. I chose not to. I made my choices. I live by them. Interesting.
So
I mean, you say the darkest day in Star Wars history, so let me just challenge that, perhaps, in terms of the darkest day in Star Wars history that we've seen on screen. But do you not think blowing up of Alderaan is maybe darker? Because they exterminated an entire planet of billions of people.
Nah, that was only for 2 seconds.
So
this was worse.
It's worse because we're in the middle of it and we physically see it happen. So, yeah. But I'm like, the darkest day in Star Wars history, because of what we see on screen compared to the blowing up of an entire planet.
Yeah. Well, do you think the darkest day is Alderaan going?
Yeah, going definitely. Because they tried to hide it. Like, how do you hide the fact that they tried to say that mining incidents and what was it they said? Mining incidents combined with the testing of technology to use in rebellion against the Empire backfired, and the planet blew up because of it. Now, anyone knows anything and the amount of power that's needed to blow up a planet, because they even say like 1,000 Star Destroyers wouldn't have enough firepower to blow up an entire planet. Yeah. So the fact that you needed a Death Star to do it, and then try and blame the fact on mining and experimentation with weapons caused that, no one's buying it. And the fact that you then disintegrate the Senate right after, so no one can complain about it. So, you know, I think that's a darker event in terms of, like, if you look at the facts of it, that's a darker event than this, but it's just the fact that we get to see this on screen. And we're in the middle of it, watching it as it happens, as opposed to, it's not like we were with Bail Organa on Alderaan, watching it from the Royal Palace balcony as the planet explodes. No. And you see everything rip up and everything turn onto fire.
No, and I still think about that scene in Rogue One where he's like, I'm going to go back to my planet and tell my people. I'm like, you probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he should have stayed at the Senate.
Yeah, he should have stayed there. So which brings us to episode 6, which gets us into the next phase, which again, it's basically the aftermath of the Gorman massacre. We see how it affects the Senate, and Mon Mothma is getting to the point where she needs to speak up. This is a very pivotal moment in Star Wars. Which again adds another chess piece on the board, which starts another chain reaction of what's going to happen next. Which we work with Mon Mothma's speech, which they need to get her out there desperately and urgently. And again, goes on the fact that you can't trust any motherfucker on whoever's under Mon Mothma's team or Garner's team. Can't trust anybody.
I mean, a great bit of play here as well when they see the senator from Gorman being arrested by the stormtroopers. First of all, they're kicking off that stormtroopers are in the Senate building because they're not allowed, which is obviously, just starts showing how things are going down and what the Empire are doing. But as he's being dragged away, and he's like, it's my planet today, it might be yours tomorrow, and the screen focuses then on Bail Organa, just to show, like, your planet's next, buddy. So, yeah. So it just goes to show, but obviously building up, and they're talking about the fact that, well, obviously Mon Mothma and Bail are talking about she's got to give the speech. They've got to find a way to do it because the Empire don't want to let these people who are outspoken against the Empire anyway take the floor. And then arranging for her to escape afterwards. And obviously they talk about Mon Mothma's going to go to Yavin, Bail's going to come at a later date, he's going to stay in the Senate for now. And then obviously Luthen having that chat with Mon Mothma. He's like, by the way, your aide works for me, has done for a few years. But, you can't trust Bail's team to get you out. You can't, and we even saw that moment in the first bunch of episodes because Erskine Samaj, her aide, met Luthen at the wedding, and he revealed he's like, oh, I started working for him just after the wedding. So it's the fact that they met at the wedding is when Luthen recruited him. So nice little. Eventually, you start seeing some of the tie-ins from the boring episodes early on to how it then comes up into this. And so, obviously, Luthen's like, Bail's team's compromised. You can't trust them. I'm going to send a guy to you. Obviously, Cassian Andor, as we see.
Oh my god! I didn't know that. Yeah.
So he's the one that, as we now know, gets Mon Mothma out of the Senate and sets her on the path to meeting with the Rebels crew and giving the speech that brings it all together. So Cassian, obviously, a much bigger role to play in the rebellion than we've ever knew about.
Well, that's right. And the fact that he is the one who basically saves Mon from her escape, which her speech was good. I think her speech was good, leading on to that, and it just I don't know, it makes a kind of crazy thought that here's the Senate, here's all the people from these planets. I'm like, you're all useless. Being in this space, the whole government is useless.
I mean, that harps back to the days of the prequels when it was still the Republic, because Padme talked lots about how, they take a long time to decide anything. Most of the time they can't agree, because obviously it's thousands of senators, and how nothing ever gets done properly, and people are easily manipulated, corruption's rife. So just the fact that then obviously the propaganda they spilt over those 24 hours to spin what happened on Gorman and calling the people the soldiers that died, the martyrs of the Empire, and all this sort of stuff, and the fact that she then has to sit there and she's like, the difference between what we're being told and the truth is an abyss. And that was quite powerful because you're just like, you've got to realise what you're being told and what the truth is. Sometimes it's just unbelievable, different. I thought it was a great speech. I think there's a bit that we've missed as well in terms of in Rebels when they're going to pick up Mon Mothma, they watch her giving a slightly different speech, and so it feels like there was maybe a speech that she somehow gave in between the point where Cassian's rescued her, and she then leaves with Gold Squadron to go to this meeting, because they show a little bit of a speech, and what she says is different to what she said in the Senate. So there's a rumor going around that perhaps she gave a second speech on her way to meet the rebel crew, of which she talked again about the Gorman Massacre, and that's the one that we saw in Rebels first and foremost, before she then gives the big third speech.
Yeah, well, they do mention the fact that she's going to make another speech, and she's about to screen it everywhere too. For example, this chamber hold on the truth was finally lost on the Gorman Plaza. What took place yesterday? What happened yesterday on Gorman was unprovoked genocide. Yes, genocide, and the truth has been exiled from the chamber, which I thought was good. And the monster screaming the loudest is the monster we, as I said, helped create. The monster who will come for us all soon enough, which is Emperor Palpatine.
Great speech.
Yeah.
If you want to call someone out, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
I almost wish, in a way, that we'd seen Palpatine for a moment. Have you watched Bad Batch, by the way? No? Okay. So there's a moment in Bad Batch when they're talking about the destruction of Kamino, when they're all debating it, and the Bad Batch are trying to get the evidence to the senators and Bail Organa or whatever to reveal the truth of what happened. And there's a moment when they're all shouting at each other, and then the sirens go off, and Palpatine rises up from the middle of the Senate floor on his pedestal and comes up and gives this quite chilling speech. And even Ian McDiarmid himself, Emperor Palpatine actor, came and did the voice acting for it, and it was fucking chilling. Even though it was like about a minute long, it was chilling. I recommend you go and watch it on YouTube, just to see the speech. But the fact I would have loved to have seen a similar thing where just as she finishes that speech and names Palpatine, the siren goes off and Palpatine rises up, and he's just like glaring down Mon Mothma before she then decides to make her escape. I think that if you'd have added that in there, that would have added a level of intensity to it that would have made it go off the fucking charts.
If you just add that, or even just like, I know it's very small, but even just him at his desk, if it was like a back shot, him watching it, and like just like
yeah,
like a fist or something.
Just something to have show Palpatine just in that moment would have been, I think, added a layer to it that it kind of almost, you didn't need it to increase the intensity, but would have, I think, added a lot more weight just because it's Palpatine himself and just seeing that. So, I mean, it was that speech, it was pretty good. Although one thing that I haven't seen mentioned anyways, I don't know if you remember at the speech that Marva gives at the end of season 1 in the Ferrix Uprising, and they talked about the fact that when she says fight the Empire, that originally was going to be a line where she says fuck the Empire. And they decided to change it because they didn't need the swear word in Star Wars. And they were like, and a lot of people said, yeah, we don't need swearing in Star Wars. It's never happened. We don't really need it to appear. It's absolutely fine. We got a swear word in this episode, and it's been glazed over completely. When Bale's talking to her, and he says, you've got to do the shit out of it. He swears in this episode, Bail Organa does, when he's talking to Mon Mothma. And I just, for the bigger deal that everyone made about the fact that they were going to say fuck the Empire and they changed it, and they didn't need swearing in Star Wars, we now have a swear word in Star Wars, and it's been completely glazed over for the last few days.
That's true. Well, that's right. Everybody knows the first swear word in Marvel, which was, again, I still think it was well worth that one first, because it's a completely situation where we've all felt.
Well,
we've all felt that same situation.
You talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy one.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first fuck in Star Wars.
Yeah.
We have had shit in Star Wars before, in Age of Ultron.
Yes. But that was the first F word.
What's your language?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah. So officially, we now have a swear word in Star Wars.
That's true.
Because before we've always had like Carabast, and Dang Farrik was essentially like fuck's sake. So, but an English swear word in Star Wars for the first time, I should say.
Yeah. So we're like, it's probably maybe too much of a long way you could put this. Where would you, if you could put the F word in anywhere in Star Wars, where would you have put it?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question. It's a tough one because a lot of people. I would need a long time to think about that. The first one that comes into mind, and like just because it's not really impactful, it wouldn't necessarily add anything to it. But I think maybe the emotion of it is like after Obi-Wan's cut Anakin down on Mustafar, and he's chatting to him, and if he went, "I fucking loved you." It doesn't necessarily. It's like not the most impactful or the most comedy-filled fuck that you can have in Star Wars.
No,
but I think like it doesn't like it's not like that scene needs any more emotion to it either. But for some reason, that's the first thing that jumped in my mind. I was like, I would need more time to narrow down possibilities and think about all of Star Wars the way you could fit one fucking. That was just the first thing that jumped to mind anyway.
But no, it still doesn't ruin the scene. It just adds more emotion to it.
Have you I might have to send it to you because I've got a copy of it, but someone sent me a copy of that scene where obviously he's cutting like a limbs and he's doing the whole speech to him, where they had the music removed, and so it's just them on the riverbank of the lava river with no music and just the pure emotion of the words, and it's fucking brutal.
It is. The entire scene can be fucking. Well, it has. It's been studied repeatedly, and just recently, everyone just watched it again.
Yeah, that's true. I went to see it in the cinema, so...
You're like, and again, you're like, oh my god, he's going to be Darth Vader. I did not see that coming.
I've not seen it coming for 20 years, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And you're like, and you're still looking going, you shouldn't have left him. Obi-Wan, you should have stayed, and you should have left Anakin.
Should have sent Yoda to kill him and sort of sent Kenobi to the
Should have sent Yoda. It would have made more sense if it was Yoda.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the point, and obviously,
Yeah, back to it, yeah.
I loved seeing Mon Mothma's reaction to watching Cassian kill people to get her out. So kills that like spy that had come in, kills her ISB driver plant, and she's just like, oh my god, and he's like, this is what I need to do to get you out. You're important. Don't forget that. Like, fucking get your act together and realize that there's going to be a lot more of this. Because every time you order a mission from now on, people are going to die. Whether it's Empire people, whether it's Rebellion people, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh my god, my driver. He's not your driver anymore.
That was that. I mean, it was kind of funny because the driver's just like wandering around looking for her, and he just happens to stumble across them and just shoots them.
Yeah, I know, straight up. But no, this was very much like, still again staying in the theme of like espionage, of like extraction, basically an extraction episode that we got with this, leading into it, and Luthen, which is kind of like he's staying, he's got other shit to do, and you know, this is where also the fact that Blix. This episode is where Bix stays. Sorry,
No,
Bix
yeah, she
leaves.
goes at the end of it, yeah, because he basically comes back after extracting Mon Mothma, and tells her that he's done. He's done with all this. He can't keep doing all of it. All he cares about is her, and that's what he wants. And she obviously is bought into what the Force healer said about the fact that he seems to have a fate. He's got a destiny which he needs to do, and he's not going to do that if she's there with him. So she does, as she says in the video, she takes the coward's way out and makes him a video and leaves in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's true. Things like this, I just love. Like, you record the entire video and he didn't wake up.
Yeah, he didn't wake up once. Yeah, it just made me laugh.
Once. And you're not in a big.
I mean, to be fair,
dome.
The man's just been through the Gorman Massacre and then got Mon Mothma out of the Senate, and he's probably knackered and needed a good sleep.
Yeah. You're like, no, that's yeah, it's true, Paul. Very deep sleep. And I'm like, yeah, he's not going to wake up when I tell him I'm leaving him. And which leads us to our last scene where they wake up K2S2. Yeah,
K2SO.
Yes.
They
wake
nice to
him.
see.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, can you please not point that gun at me?
Like, so I'm sorry if I have offended you.
Yeah.
If I haven't, please point that gun somewhere else.
Yeah. I know, which a part of me is like leading to the last 3 episodes, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a little bit, I know, well, it's going to be too fun, but I'm glad he's going to be in it now. It's going to have that more comedic tone to it.
And it's going to make it more like the Rogue One feeling. I mean,
yeah,
the last week's episode and this week's didn't necessarily have a Rogue One feel about it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in next week's episode. Yeah, it's going to be more fun with him in it, but there's a lot to wrap up in that time as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, so no, I thought, oh my god, I forgot his name. I thought he was going to be more in this episode. Sorry, in this season.
Saw Gerrera?
Yeah. I thought he was going to be
Well,
a bit more.
this is why I was thinking that if he doesn't make an appearance next week, then he's been pointless. Because the one episode that we got him in, and he was just convincing that Wilmot or whatever his name is to join his sort of side of it, which he doesn't seem to by this week seem to be with them anyway, because he's back with Cassian on Andor and working for Luthen still, and that side of the rebellion. So God knows what's happening. So if we don't see Saw next week, I mean, because basically we need to get to the point where he's got no hair and he's got 1 foot. So if they're not going to show us that, then that's fine. You can leave that for Rogue One. It's a bit of a shock that he's changed so much, especially since the last time we would have technically seen him was 2 years ago. But if you don't show him in any capacity next week, then it makes his appearance last week pointless. For me, it was just to include him because he was part of the Rogue One film.
Yeah, which I feel like slightly is pointless, because I was a bit like, oh.
Especially since we do see him in the last season of Rebels. He has an episode or 2 in that, and he has no hair and he's still got both feet. So something big needs to happen between like next week's episodes and Rogue One for that to happen.
That's it. Like slip and falls. You know, telling more people to breathe it in, breathe in the rebellion.
Just didn't need it.
Yeah. Just didn't it? No.
Explains why he's like that, as we said on my show. He's the Redinian Huffer, explains why he's a bit mental, a bit crazy. But
Oh yeah, he's definitely crazy.
and calling the Rhydonian his sister, and again, if anyone knows about Steeler from the Clone Wars, will know how fucking random that is, given his connection to Steeler. So
yeah,
Saw Gerrera, nut job.
Yeah, weird unit, and we're about to get a good unit too. Technically, a good unit. It's funny actually. I saw a clip yesterday from Star Wars Celebration where I forgot his name, the actor Andor did say that when he gets slapped in Rogue One, he's actually laughing in it because he wasn't expecting it or something. He was just a bit like,
Yeah.
oh.
It's amazing how often that happens, and the fact they have to hide themselves from laughing at different points.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor famously, I don't know if you heard about this one, but in Revenge of the Sith, when he goes to tell Padme that Anakin's turned to the dark side and he's seen security hologram of him killing younglings, apparently this took many, many takes because he said that line and kept laughing. So when he goes, I've seen security holograms of him killing younglings, and he puts his hand up to his mouth as if he's in like shock and stuff, and he's just hiding himself, smirking and laughing to make sure he can get through the scene. So it's funny how often that happens in like serious moments when actors have to cover themselves up to do it.
Yeah. Well, when I see it's when you mentioned younglings, I saw a meme today that was like a Palpatine being like calling Anakin saying, "Oh, hey, I forgot to tell you about the younglings. Don't have to worry about killing them because we can like re-educate them for the Empire." And next frame's like, "You fucking what?"
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny. I think one of my favourite memes from that is he's just like, where Obi-Wan's telling Padme, he's like, I saw a security hologram of Anakin killing younglings, and it shows a picture of Anakin drinking a 6-pack of younglings beer. There's like a German beer called Younglings, and it's just him with a 6-pack. We're like,
oh my god, have you seen the strike bowling one?
yes, yeah.
And it's like, oh, these strike bowling ads are getting really out of hand.
Oh, the prequels, just meme gold mines.
It is the whole thing. So, with those 3 episodes, do you think we're in a good course correction going straight into the last 3 episodes of Andor, which we'll pick up straight into Rogue One, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I saw a post today saying the last episode's going to be in theaters or something?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I haven't seen that. But I mean, we were always told that the season will end with it being 15 minutes before we meet Cassian in Rogue One. So it's basically going to fly us into Kafrene, which is the Imperial district moon or whatever, where we meet him, killing that poor guy, giving him information. So all I want to see is, I don't really care where. It's been a bit weird because this season is called Andor. I mean, this whole show is called Andor. I don't feel we've seen like a lot of Andor until these last couple of episodes. Like the massacre and the extraction have been more around Andor as well as the events themselves. Apart from that, this season I don't feel has been too much about Cassian and getting him towards Rogue One. So the next 3 episodes I don't think matter that much with Cassian in terms of getting him, because I think after this week's episodes, we're going to jump another year. But he's going to be settled into the rebellion now. He's going to, have moved on from the Bix situation, even though he might, obviously, they'll still hint at it. He's going to be fully on board with the rebellion now and doing shit for them, as we heard in Rogue One. He's done a lot of things he regrets for the rebellion. So I don't think it matters too much what they do in the next 3 episodes with Cassian, because he seems to be probably fully on board with the situation now. For me, it's about tying up everything else. So introducing anyone else to the rebellion that we need to see that is around, tying up the story with Dedra and with Luthen, I think are 2 big ones. Because I think both of them will die. So whether we see from that clip that we said that we saw in the trailer where she's in Luthen's shop pointing a gun at someone, whether she's the one that kills off Luthen and then someone, maybe Cassian, retaliates by killing her, because she was his mission in the Gor Massacre and couldn't do it. And he feels regret for that because he should have taken her out then, and if he'd have done that, she wouldn't have killed off Luthen.
True.
So it's just about tying up the ends of the character of all the side characters, because I don't think it matters really what we do for Cassian for next week between that and Rogue One, because it just there's nothing you need to fill in his story now. He's got to a point where he's fully committed to the rebellion. He's been through shit, and he's on board with it. We've got Melchi back, as we saw at the end of episode 9 as well, who obviously was part of the Scarif Beach invasion and obviously escaped with him from Narkina 5 in season 1.
Yep.
So everything's back in place for him. We don't need to do anything really for Cassian now in these next 3 episodes. It's all about tying up everything else and leading towards Rogue One.
Yep, and getting ready all for that, which I'm all on board for, and I just really hope that this season ends on a high. It just gets you really excited because it would be really cool. I don't know how they would do it. That with the Rogue One goes back into theaters, that they kind of had this. I know epilogue means the ending, like intro. Can't remember what the right word for it is.
No, I know what you mean.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Like the last episode that they could show this before Rogue One.
I know what you mean. Yeah, like a. No, it's not epilogue, is it? It's epilogues. Is it epilogue at the start?
Epilogues at the end.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Like a forward or something, isn't it? Like in a book.
Yeah, that's
I know what you mean, but I mean the only connection I'd like to see, because you don't have to really connect it too much, because we've seen all the characters. We've got Bail Organa, we've got Mon Mothma. We haven't seen Dodana, but we don't really need to see him. One of the other obviously leaders. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who's like acting like his boss in these last couple of episodes for the rebellion, and is like one of his bosses telling him that he needs to kill Galen Erso in Rogue One. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The British dude, the one I'm on about.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see if we see him next week. So we see all these characters basically tying us to Rogue One, and I think what would be really good is if there is a hint that they found where Jyn Erso is. They're like, or they start getting reports of the Death Star. Because obviously the fact that they find out that there's a Death Star going on and Galen Erso is connected to it, I think they need to touch on that in the last episode, and then they go, well, actually, the Empire's picked up this chick who we think's Jyn Erso. Let's send someone to go and pick her up, and they send obviously K2 and a group to go and pick her up. That, if you tie that in, I'd be happy enough. I don't think I need much more connection to Rogue One above that, because you've got everyone pretty much there anyway.
Yeah, that's it. I'm still trying to find the right word.
I know what you mean. Although interestingly, that dude I was talking about, the British dude who's like the in charge. They did it in a comic that's post Rogue One. He's force choked to death by Darth Vader. That's how he meets his demise. It's one of the comics set between like episode 4 and 5 or something. Vader catches up to him,
though.
and he falls.
Do you want any Darth Vader before this wraps up?
I mean, I'm always going to want Vader. I don't think we're going to get it. I don't think, if there was anything going to happen, it might have been in episode 9. I mean, post the massacre, because like Vader is always like, you fuckers are so clunky when you're not subtle going about shit. And so it would have been maybe better or maybe next week you could have the first episode, a little conversation between Vader and Krennic. Because we've seen obviously that in Rogue One, and it would be nice to see that they have interactions before that. So like Vader's warning him again about things, and that leads to him being, because obviously he gets summoned by Vader in Rogue One, and so we'd like to see maybe just a short scene where, if we were going to include Vader, where he's summoned by Vader again to go, look, what happened last year with the Gor Massacre, you guys have got to watch your fucking step. The rebellion's growing, you need to sort shit out. You've got to fucking finish the Death Star, dickhead. sort of thing going on. So
come on.
I don't think it's needed now. They've missed an opportunity, I think, as we said in episode 9, to have Palpatine just have a small glimpse and cameo. That would have been really powerful. I don't think we're at a stage now where we need Vader, really. It would have been nice. I'm always wanting to see Vader. I just can't think of a scenario in these next 3 episodes where a Vader cameo would be impactful enough to have meaning for him to be there, other than it just being fan service of seeing Vader.
Yeah, I can't think of it really, because then if we don't get Vader, it just makes the Rogue One Vader scene more impactful.
Yeah, like the director said that we don't see him. I mean, we know that they lie, but he just says there's nothing really to do with Vader in this series, so there was no point to it. You can name drop him as they've name dropped Palpatine, but I think the Palpatine, as I said, one in the last episode would have been the best time to have either of them appear. I just don't see a place for Vader in next week's episodes.
Yeah. It's I see it too, and it's funny because like how much now with all these movies filling all these gaps and everything, like for someone to fresh to come into Star Wars, I'm like, it is a mission. It's going into if you love it, and it's good. Like if you do love it and you're fresh coming to Star Wars, you have so much more now than we did since 2005.
Yeah, I mean, it's the current debate with Marvel, isn't it? In it, like, how much homework do you have to do to? Because, like Kevin Feige saying things like you shouldn't have to do homework to catch up on new films. Yet, to catch up on Thunderbolts, they put a thing on Disney Plus of like 100 hours worth of stuff to watch. So it's just kind of like, okay, how much do we need to do? And the thing with Star Wars is because it's not linear, you don't necessarily need to do a lot of catching up. Like you could watch. You could go and watch Andor as a singular series, or you could watch nothing before, really, and you could start off with Andor and go, okay, there's an empire that rules in a totalitarian fashion. There's people that are starting to rebel, and these are the characters that we're going to focus on, and that could lead them straight into Rogue One and then the original trilogy, and then you're off. You go off from there. I think the biggest debate nowadays is how do you start people off who are new to Star Wars?
Yeah, what order? Which we spoke about that. We spoke of that in your episode.
So that's the only debate is you could start them off anywhere, really. Like it just depends how impactful you want the story to be, and if anything's been ruined for them online before you get to that point. Because most people nowadays, spoiler, Darth Vader is obviously Luke's father.
Oh my god! Come on, man. We haven't done any spoiler warning for the entire episode.
I just said spoiler warning. It's fine. So that's the only thing is you got to keep out of people's things. If they're new to Star Wars, keeping that out the way, because that is obviously the biggest and most impactful reveal of Star Wars, isn't it? So, apart from that,
Luke and Leia being brother and sister after what happens after Episode 4. That's a pretty big reveal.
I mean, the only thing you can't do is you have to start off either at the prequels, at Andor going into Rogue One, or obviously starting just the original trilogy flat out.
No. You started Solo.
You can't fuck off. Basically, I'm saying is that for any new Star Wars fan, you could not start them off at anything post original trilogy because it just doesn't make sense. Everything good has happened by then.
No. Start off with Visions, and then it all makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the big question nowadays is if you got someone new, like when my daughter's finally old enough to understand Star Wars, what order do I start her off in?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I decide. And I'm pretty sure I know I'm going to do that. And I'm not really leaving that to anyone because it's my special way of fucking her up mentally.
No, I'll just be like, hey, I've got a war film I want you to watch with me. We've just watched Oppenheimer. This is another war film. It's called Rogue One. It's a period piece. I really want you to watch it. No, actually, no. You should watch it after. What's it called? With Tom Hanks. What's the war film?
What Forrest Gump?
Right.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah, be like, I've got another beach war film I want you to watch.
Haven't watched that in time, to be fair.
I forget every time I go to watch that film. Same thing with Forrest Gump. I'm like, I forget how long this film goes for.
I don't know, man. Just not something I'm going to watch very often. I can't remember the last time I watched Saving Private Ryan. It's been decades.
I know it's still fun. I still find it weird the fact that Vin Diesel's in it.
Is he? Fuck me. Yeah, is he? Don't even know.
Yeah, no, it's like just like the whole thing with war just screws him up and be like, nah, man, family and cars, bro. That's what I'm all good for.
I am
good.
Cars.
I'm Groot. I'm just going to be talking about trees and cars. That is
Yeah.
my life right there.
Fair.
But no, thank you so much for coming on this episode, Andy. I really do appreciate it. And as always, tell everybody where they can find your particular podcast and what you got coming up.
I absolutely appreciate you asking me on, buddy. A big week for Star Wars episodes, no matter how you view the incidents of what happened. Massive week. I mean, episode 8, the Gorman Massacre, I read it's already been thrust into the ratings-wise the top 10 episodes of all time of any TV shows. So
Yes.
an absolute pleasure to come on and be the one to discuss these episodes. As always, you can find Galactic Core Podcast across Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube. My episodes are live each time on YouTube and Twitch. You can always catch them if you're not if you don't want to watch them on YouTube and Spotify. You can always catch up with them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. As I said, all the live episodes and all my previous episodes are on YouTube as well. Absolute pleasure as always, buddy. I know I'll see you soon. I don't have much coming up planned for the podcast in the next month or two, to be honest, until we nothing big really until we hit July. Because obviously we got Jurassic World, Superman, Fantastic Four,
so much,
and a potential meetup with somebody as well. So really,
that's a crossover episode I'm up for.
So not much planned between now and then, to be fair. Just a little bits here and there, just catching up. Obviously, we've got Andor finale next week. Me and Clan Randalorian always sort of once a month or so are doing like our open topic Star Wars chats. Always drop by and just have a bit of fun with that. And just having a chill couple of months before it gets manic in July, really.
It's going to be very, very insane coming those months. And then with Ballerina on top of that and a couple of other ones as well. It's just going to be nuts.
28 years later is in June, I think, isn't it?
Yep, 28 years later. Also, I just real quick. So on IMDb, because you mentioned it earlier, episode 1 of Andor Season 2, 7.9 out of 10. Episode 2, 7.5 out of 10, which is mainly the ones that was in the trees and everything. That was shit. Episode 3, 8.6, the hardest one. Yep. Episode 4 with Saw Gerrera, 7.9 out of 10. I Have Friends Everywhere, 8.2. Episode 6, What a Festival Evening, 8.8. The Messenger, episode 7, 8.5, and this is where we get into it. Currently, right now, as it stands, episode 8, which is The Massacre, currently stands at 9.8 out of 10 with 11k reviews.
Damn. I mean, I
think that's 11k reviews. I think that means in IMDb.
I'm a little bit meaner with my ratings for a lot of things because I think like the minute you get above a 9.5, that means pretty much perfection. But 9.8 is crazy high.
Well, you're not going to be happy about this, which I don't think it's... It's good, but I don't think it's that great. Episode 9 also has a 9.8.
Fuck me. That is a bit too high. I could see it hitting the 9s, like maybe just about because the follow on from it, the speech with the Senate, everything like that. But yeah, to have that as a 9.8 is crazy.
Yeah, I'd be like a 9. I go with 9. Like the episode was good, but I think episode 8 is the better episode.
Oh yeah,
as
definitely.
a whole.
So if you'd have made 7 and 8 as one whole episode, that would have been like almost the perfect one because, like I said, the build up between them, the tension building, the world building, getting everyone into place, phenomenal work. Well done, Tony Gilroy and Star Wars, and just as well that set of the Gorman Plaza. That's not a real life location. They built a 500-foot set in the back of Pinewood Studios here in England to film that all on.
For episode 8?
Any shots they've done for the whole Gorman Plaza, so in the square, for the entire series, that is a 500-foot set that they built in Pinewood Studios. So, because obviously you'd think maybe it's like a real place, so where they just shot at, and obviously CGI'd in the explosion and stuff. But no, that's a set they built from scratch.
Yeah. Well, you know what that is? You know what that is, good sir? That's Disney money.
Well,
that's Disney money. Or even nice. even when Andor and Mon walk out of that massive building in episode 9. I'm like, is that a real building?
Oh, that is actually a real building.
Where is that?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I saw a clip of it being used in another show. Just like I saw a clip this week of Conclave, that TV show, and they're walking down these steps, and it's the fucking the Royal Palace on Naboo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't use that. That's Star Wars. That's the only place you can associate it with.
Yes, I saw that too. I was like, it's like, you know, for any Star Wars fans watching that would have been like, right there. But now, look, Andy, thank you so much for coming for this episode, and thanks for everyone who's tuning in. Thank you for everyone who's listening. As always, next week we'll be wrapping up Andor and jumping back to The Last of Us, because that it will still be going, which will lead us straight into Big Mouth final season. That's right around the corner, which I can't wait for that, which should lead us right into Ballerina and lead us straight into Ironheart if we ever get the bloody trailer. As we're recording this, we've got nothing. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and until next time, happy ranting.
Thanks for listening to Lights, Camera, Rant. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review, and be sure to tell your friends. Until next time, happy ranting.